What's going on, everyone? Adam Gelman here. I am excited because Select is finally here. We are literally a couple of weeks into it. I wanted to wait a little bit before we did the review because a couple of things have happened since the product has come out. One of them is we were able to come back from Chicago, get our wits about us. Also, the retail product is released, at least from an online perspective. So in that respect, we now have a better picture of it. But I wanted to have an opportunity to bring my good friend Alex here on board as well. Alex, you're probably better known as Breaker Mayfield. How you doing, my friend? Tell us, everybody, you're the first time on the channel. So happy to have you on. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where they can find you, kind of what your role is in the hobby.
Yeah, well, I am on Whatnot, and I go by Breaker Mayfield. That's a name that I made as a joke. And when I decided I wanted to switch it, everyone said, don't switch it. And so I said, okay. And now I have to wake up every morning to DMs asking me if I want to buy Baker Mayfield rookie cards. And
Right.
that might be the single last thing I would want to purchase or be asked to purchase when I wake up every day. So it's kind of like it hasn't been great for me, but I enjoy it. And
it's stuck. It's a handle at this point.
Yeah. And then I find out later that there's a guy named Rip Flair, and I'm like, why didn't I think of that one?
There's also a Rip Hamilton as well. So like,
yes,
there's all of these guys on Whatnot that have taken their names from players. But you have become kind of the preeminent WWE breaker on Whatnot. You've been joined since your launch by a few others, but I think when it comes to Whatnot and breaking WWE, most people are you're synonymous kind of with that crowd. How did it start for you? Like, where did you come like to understand that WWE was your niche on that platform?
Well, it's a long story, but I started trying to break NFL and NBA and UFC and anything you could ever imagine, and it was really hard. And the market was very saturated with breakers. I had never watched wrestling in my life. The last time I watched, the only time I had any wrestling in my life was when I played Nintendo 64 and I beat up on everyone as the Big Show, and then
Right.
then I had never watched a wrestling match. I had never enjoyed the wrestling community, and somebody had contacted me and had a bunch of Prism wrestling cards and asked me to sell them on Whatnot as singles. And then I started selling them on Whatnot, and I immediately started getting a lot of viewers. Come to find out, they were all there watching me mispronounce every single name wrong.
Right.
And it was more
it's
of
not
a
easy
because I couldn't pronounce a single name correctly, and everyone knew that I didn't know anything about wrestling, and I had some family tragedies that kind of forced me into doing this full time. And on a not to get into too much detail, but I was accepted by the wrestling community, which was amazing. And being isolated through COVID and through being a caretaker, I the only friends and people that I had were the wrestling community, and so I kind of credit the wrestling community for saving my life.
awesome.
And being a place to go where I felt accepted even though I didn't know anything about wrestling. And fast forward a year, and I'm sitting ringside at SmackDown and at the
right.
Rose Garden in Seattle,
With your girls,
and
yeah.
I am truly enjoying the hobby as well as the entire wrestling community.
That's an absolutely incredible story, and we're happy to have you. I mean, you break so much product, you make these breaks available to everybody. So I mean, like, that makes a lot of sense. Ryan, as well, how's it going, sir? My partner in crime.
Another wonderful 110-degree day in Arizona. That's all I can say. Just boiling out here. So I'm Ryan, Non-Sport Showcase on Instagram. I think Alex sold himself a little short there. I watched some of his stream, and how old are you, bud?
36.
Okay. You're still kind of a young man. You go and go and go and go, and those 8-hour streams, man, I don't know how you get through it, because I like opening cards, but it is just endless. So it's really impressive. And then you stop and you do 5 cases, and you're like, yeah, we'll do two more as long as everybody's here. And then I'm like, I'm going to
It's
bed.
insane.
So
And then
I can't.
and then you sort it all too. It's just insane. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, no,
It
it's something, man. It really is.
Yeah,
So,
when you're trying to support your family, you'll do anything for them. But also, Select makes it a lot easier than Prism and Revolution because there's so much variety and so much more excitement surrounding it. So,
Perfect segue.
Yeah, great segue. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So, like, we're here to discuss 2023 Select. Obviously, an awesome product that I know you've done a ton of. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on. I think at this point, you said you've ripped about 30 cases on stream. I know I've watched and participated in a few of your breaks. I love watching the boxes rip because, like you said, there's a ton of variety. But I think, this is a really unique product in itself because you mentioned it's very different than Prism. It's very different than Revolution, even though it shares a similarity with Prism because they're both sort of chrome type products, but they're shiny products. But I think like the variety in the product itself is really unique because Select is one of those products that collectors have really gravitated towards in WWE. So I guess really what I think the first place to start is as you're looking at 2023 Select, Alex, like what is your overall impression of this year, especially given that it's still kind of fresh? There's a lot of people still hunting for their stuff because there's literally tons of it that we need as player collectors or as just set collectors, whatever. Like, how did you look at this year's set? What was your overall impression?
I probably am somewhere around that 30 case mark. And I believe that even today at 30 cases, I pulled a card that I hadn't pulled yet, that I hadn't seen yet. So with Prism and Revolution and other products, it gets really stale. It gets really hard to, enjoy an 8-hour stream when we're just kind of, chasing a gold or a 101. Like it's something new when you're ripping every time. Concourse, Premier, you know, Ringside, Zebra, the die cuts this year, the wide range of autos. There's something for everybody, and so it makes the break a lot more fun. It makes the product, you're able to offer the product at a affordable price, but still be able to kind of make a living off of it. As opposed to Prism, you're kind of getting really stretched thin, and Revolution and other products, you get stretched really thin with some of the smaller checklists. Whereas with Select, you can kind of open it up a little bit and really kind of offer somebody something of value, but also be able to continue to do it as much as possible. For me, it's like I'd rather rip 5 cases in a day than 1 case and just make it spend 12 hours trying to milk every penny out of it. And so I really enjoy being able to close a break in a couple hours, rip the cards, and get them shipped out. I've had more people tag me in an Instagram post since Select has been released than maybe the previous 6 months combined in product hits because of how excited people get about it.
Oh, good. Yeah, my internet cut out there for a second. So, but I got the gist of it. So I think that's a good point. I mean, like from the perspective of Prism and Select, I mean, like there's so much of these products. I think this year specifically, they had a big shoes to fill. I think we all agree after 2022, really big shoes to fill. Ryan, as you're looking at 2022 and 2023, but more on the fact of like what you've experienced now, having something to chase for 23, looking at this from the perspective of a player collector, even like what was your overall impression of 23? Do you think that they've sort of lived up to the hype?
Yeah, so I'm a Brutus Beefcake collector. I primarily do autos, but I told myself if he ever made it into a Panini product, I was going to try for a rainbow. He did actually make it this year, which is fantastic. He's in the concourse, and I've secured a lot of the cards already. At last count, I think it's 22 cards for a rainbow.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and I still don't know if concourse is going to have an elephant somewhere or a tiger. I
They
think
should.
they will.
Yeah, I have seen
Yeah,
the
they
concourse
should.
tigers. Yeah.
So that's actually 24. So for me, it's exciting. For you, collecting Becky Lynch, who's in every single level, now we're talking 100 cards.
Right.
But for me, I'm having a ball because my guy's affordable, and I'm just knocking him down left and right. The thing that people have to understand about Select, and really this goes for a lot of products across the collecting spectrum, they kind of follow a pattern. You know, they follow an outline from year to year to year with a little bit of change here and there. Like this year, we got first off the line. Double checking, we did not have first off the line last year, correct?
We did not. No.
We did not. So we, it's just a little wrinkle. We're gonna get the Firestorms are in retail. 2022 was product of the year for WWE. I think it's one of the best products we've seen probably in the last 10 years. 2023 is living up to that hype as well. The rookie class is a little less desirable than 22. 22 was really stacked, but 23 is a great product. And I think at the price point, you're talking like $180 to $200 a box, maybe a little cheaper, maybe a little more. It's really just a wonderful product that I think a lot of people are really digging.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the main thing here is that with Prism, I think you have to rip 3 or 4 boxes to really get some good stuff out of it. I think people can rip a box of Select and feel satisfied. And like that's really the key for a lot of these products is like I've only ripped 1 box. I've participated in a ton of case breaks, but I've only ripped 1 personal box, and that was in Chicago. And I think I was fine with it. Like I didn't pull anything crazy. I didn't have just there wasn't something insane that came out of my box, but it was fun. I mean, we ripped it together, Ryan, and I think it was something that really sort of just was a good rip. It was a fun rip. We got a lot of different variety, and I think where this, because it has the 3 base levels, it gives the checklist a lot of opportunity to sort of have multiple wrestlers populate all these different parts of the checklist. The autograph checklists are huge. It's legends plus existing people. Yeah, the rookies probably aren't as big. I think you have Sol Ruka is probably still the biggest one. She has an autograph for the first time in this. I think overall, like 22 was such a hard product to live up to. I think it's really hard to fill those shoes. I think Panini did a pretty good job getting to this point. I mean, I don't know if you guys have anything follow up there.
Yeah, I mean,
I think. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just going to say comparison is the thief of joy. So, as long as you like a product and you like what's in it, then there's no reason to, I mean, you can compare a little bit here and there, but I definitely live by the comparison, is the thief of joy. So let's just like it for what it is. 2022 was incredible. Putting Roxanne Perez in the mezzanine section. I mean, that card is probably I know it was almost $100 when it was released. And
it's still a $30 or $40 card.
Right, which is, for a base card, that's pretty damn good. And I think let's just enjoy 2023 for what it is. It's another great product, and I'm happy with it. So, Alex, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that 2022 and 2023 are probably 1 and 2 of the most undervalued products still. 2022, if you follow some of the one-on-one trackers, has tons of one-of-one still available, and it's still a third of the price of Prism debut. Yeah. And same with 2023 is not only has only 5 or 10% of the one-on-ones been hit in 2023, but it's still a third of the price, or 2/3 of the price of Prism. So you can get you could get 3 cases of Select for the cost of 2 cases of Prism, and I just think that is a way better value, way better opportunity for people that are interested in returns. One big transition that I had to make coming into wrestling and not knowing the wrestling community was that the wrestling community is filled with collectors versus investors, whereas in the sports community you're going to be really heavy on the investor side. So you're not always targeting people like, oh, you're going to get this return, you're going to be able to make money. People want their cards and they want to collect them and they want to keep them. So many times I'll pull a card and they're like, oh, you want to sell it? And the answer is always no. Whereas in the sports side, it's like yes every time.
It's a great point.
Value.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, like, first of all, I think Select looks better as a product by a million miles than Prism ever does. Like, Prism's the standard. Prism values, the golds and the blacks, like those are the benchmarks for WWE. They always will be. They always will be hobby wide, but I think Select's a better looking product. I still think, I mean, like, it's weird. Like, you can get the ringside rock gold for a fraction of the price of what a prism gold is the rock. Like, those correlations have existed in the hobby for since the inception of both of these products. And so it makes sense to me because, and I know it makes sense to a lot of people that collect NBA and NFL. For others, it may not because they don't have a lot of that experience to understand the difference between what Prism is as a hobby standard versus what Select is. If you think of like Chrome versus Finest, a lot like that's the way Select was created, right? Panini mirrored Prism after Chrome and they mirrored Select after Finest. It's literally an identical sort of thing, just like Spectra is supposed to be Sterling and all these other things. So I mean, like it makes sense that the correlation between the values lines up like that. But to your point, like if you're trying to get value out of a return, spending less on the box of Select and having fun doing it, first of all, but also having, probably much more available. I think in 22 Prism, there's only a handful of cards left that are really going to tip the scales if you're buying cases of it. If you're looking for 22 Select, there's a huge amount of cards that are still out there. Same thing with 23 Prism, The Rock, Stone Cold. All those guys are already pulled. Select, you have probably 3 to 4 different 101s of those out there. They're not going to be 5-figure cards, but they're still going to be really nice returns. But again, like I think you mentioned a really good point. Like WWE has been, at least this is what drew me to it, is like it's a community first and foremost. You mentioned what drew you to the community is such a wonderful experience sort of coming in and being a part of it and support that you've had during your experience as a new sort of collector of WWE products and stuff like that, new Breaker. But for me too, like it's a complete culture shock because it's completely different than anything else that I think has been out there. And one of the things is like there's people out there that collect, Alba Fire or collect, the lower card men. There's a Xavier Woods collector. There's a Brutus Beefcake collector, right? So like there's always somebody from out there for everybody, right? And I think
there's even
a dewdrop
dewdrop collector.
Yes, there is. And I think like that's what's so interesting about it. you so I think like the and she's awesome, by the way. I've met her in person. She's amazing. She's a great person. But the great thing about this is like Select gives opportunities to include more people in the set because you're not just putting a 400 card checklist together. You're putting a 400 card checklist where you can have the Stone Colds and the Rocks, but you're having also different opportunities for different autographs, different stuff across the thing. But I want to also think like what else worked really well for this product? Like if you had to look at this from an overall perspective, like what do you think was the most successful parts of this, Ryan? Like if you had to handicap Select from the top down, like what do you think this year was some of the things that worked really well for Select 23?
I think the first off the line worked really well. Taking the Mojo design and then making it FOTO only was a great decision because I think that with Mojo being in Prism at numbered out of 25, you kind of get fatigue after a while if you see the same patterns over and over and they're the same thing. I think just by tweaking it to the 7, 4, and 2 was a great move. What I really like this year is it looks like they're only going to have one 101. So for player collectors, that's a big deal because last year we had the black and the black gold. So yeah,
and the black, black gold and the black.
I think that was it.
That was just those two, and then they had the autographs were black flat and then black. That makes sense.
Right, because I actually have the beefcake. I have the black and the black flash. I have both of those. So for me, tracking down the 101 is hard enough. Tracking down 2 101s is almost impossible.
Close to impossible. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do like the fact they did that. I mean, I could go on. They really, it's really a great product. I like the snapshots. I think those are great looking cards. I think they did a really great job with it. So, but I'm not going to hog the spotlight on what worked well. So somebody else jump in here. Go ahead, Alex.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, from a breaker's perspective, having, I guess with retail, you don't really do retail, but having multiple 101s keeps a product hot. But from a collector standpoint, not having, and somebody who's like a super collector, not having to chase and fork out the money it's going to take to get additional 101s, that is obviously very refreshing. But that was probably my single biggest complaint with Prism, was that FOTL didn't have the black shimmer, undercard didn't have the black undercard like they have in all the other products. That was my probably like I thought one of the worst decisions out there. But when I first saw the checklist for 2023, and I saw what they did with Ringside, coming from a sports collecting background, the Ringside version of Select is, for any other sport, is like the second most iconic card, in an entire year's release, out of any other product. You've got Prism Black or Prism just base, and then you've got, field level, courtside, octagon side, ringside, whatever. And I thought in my initial reaction was, why take the second most iconic card that Panini has produced, like the collectors have been going after year after year, the second most valuable rock, on the planet, or maybe the third if you want to count both Prism years, but like would be the Ringside rock.
Yeah.
And so when they changed it, my initial reaction was that was a dumb decision. Then I started pulling these cards, and the photos, it kept that high end, sleek, upper class, look, and the photos were impressive. It mirrored the Ringside autos, if you're gonna try to collect both. And it didn't take long for me to then think that those Ringsides, and it's the only horizontal base card. It didn't take long for me to appreciate that the new focus on the Ringside.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I remember when I first saw that the Ringside was going to be horizontal, I lost my shit. I was like, like after last year, which I thought the Ringside design last year was just so amazing, and the photos were absolutely amazing, and it was just like, that set was probably one of the best of the year. This year, to see that it was going to be horizontal, I was like, oh shit, here we go. I was really upset. I talked to Lucas about it. I talked to Panini about it. I was like, guys, please, you can't do this. But then I saw the Stone Cold card. I saw the Undertaker card. You pulled one. Hold it up.
We pulled one today.
Yeah.
And True Gold Stone.
Oh God, it's so cool. And
yeah,
it's just like,
I hit it for Rip Flair, the guy that had the single best name in yeah.
The Zamboni is just awesome. Like, that is awesome. An iconic moment in WWE history. We got the Undertaker on the motorcycle from the Boneyard match. There's even the Bray Wyatt looks good. Like, it's like some of these photos look absolutely tremendous. And I think if you look to like some of the horizontal photos that they've done in Prism, where it's like the Macho Man is obviously one of the more iconic ones from this year, like some of them worked really well. I think they did a really good job with the Ringside photos for the most part in this year. I think Mezzanine also being horizontal probably takes away from that a little bit. But I think, it's
and the
growing.
Snapshots, like they didn't have to, like the snapshots. When the first case that I opened, I called every snapshot Ringside,
because
they
look almost identical. Yeah,
because they did a good job with the snapshot photos too. Like that LA Knight snapshot photo, I would rather have that one than the Ringside.
Yeah. So here's here I can see it on my back.
I mean, you can't even. Yeah, it's a great card.
So I think like those, like they've done their work. I think on the photos, like Select has become the Stadium Club type product. Like if you're familiar with Stadium Club for baseball, that's where Topps traditionally uses just their best, most sort of engaging photos. And I think Select really has become that. There's some awesome stuff in here. Like even the Uncle Howdy Ringside card, like it's like, okay, that if you're gonna do it in that that set. I also think you mentioned. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I adjusted pricing based off of those Uncle Howdy, Tori Wilson, Trish Stratus, like some of those like iconic photos where some of their spots and breaks would typically be, a floor price, where it was
Right.
like the photos were just so good and looked so sleek that though that those prices had to be adjusted because they were the first ones sold every single break. And so that's why
So
I
there's
love
one
it.
card. There's actually two cards that I want to talk about from the set. One of them is Pat McAfee. This is his first card in a prism type format. I think it might be his second card because he did have a relic from Immaculate last year. It's actually sold pretty well, but he does have a ringside card in this. I think I have it somewhere on my desk. I'm not going to go searching for it, but because I actually pulled it in one of your breaks. But that card is really a true crossover. Like, what's been your reaction to the Pat McAfee card?
Well, I talked to the gentleman that hit the 101, and I offered him a case of Select for it, and he said no. And so I think that that's going to be an iconic card coming from outside the wrestling community and collecting, and Pat McAfee having
Just
kind
a
of,
huge following.
A huge following, similar to like the Ronda Rouseys, or if Logan Paul ever gets in a set, which if I'm Logan Paul,
Or Bad Bunny,
I'm
all those guys.
yeah, Bad Bunny. If I'm Logan Paul, I'm saying don't put me in a set until next year's Prism. That's got to be his
Right.
first. But I think that is a great card. So his golds, I think, and the 101 are going to be very valuable, just because you're going to get so many people outside. I think that card is going to bring so many people from outside the community into the community, which is good. And also another complaint I have is, not adding Logan Paul and Bad Bunny and some of these people into Prism or Select, I think is a
Running out of time.
misstep. What? Yeah,
We're running out of
because
time.
it could bring so many people in. Yeah.
Well,
But his spot doesn't go for as much as it did before, so it's a more of a low end spot now, just because his cards are so hard to hit. But I'm assuming that his ringside card can forever get $5 to $10 or however much it's going for now.
Right.
I mean, could you imagine the Bad Bunny card walking out at Backlash with the kendo stick and the crowd? Like,
oh my God.
I mean, you could make that card could be iconic right out of the pack, because I watched, in preparing for this today, I actually went back and watched Bad Bunny's entrance to that, and I saw at least
absolutely insane.
It gives you chills, first off, because it's just an incredible, awesome moment. But there's so many stills where he's got the kendo stick and he's walking up, and all the fans on the rails are just reaching for him, and they're almost blocking him out because they're getting so close to him. And then there's shots where the camera went up from behind, and you saw him looking out I mean, it's just
it's just incredible.
Just an insane card, maybe for next year. But I agree.
I really hope they do.
Logan Paul coming off the ropes, colliding. I mean, you could definitely make some iconic.
A dual Logan Ricochet card would be awesome.
I mean,
dual Logan Paul and Roman Reigns. I mean, like, give Logan Paul everything in the next year.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like, I could, like, seriously, this guy hasn't. I know there's licensing issues because he's still technically under a celebrity contract or something. It's weird. They're making figures, which is a good sign. So I'm hoping that at some point he will have a WWE card. Same with Bad Bunny. Those guys need to make it into a set. But Pat McAfee having a card in this is a really good start. The other ringside card I think I want to talk about is Rhea Ripley, because it might be the card of the year. And I like that card when I saw it as the first off the line preview card that they put up. Like, I literally just, like, my jaw dropped. Like, could you think of a more perfect photo to use for that card? Like, I saw that, I was like, holy shit, this is going to go wild.
I'm sitting on a handful of cases that I'm hoping to break over the next week or two, and there is not a card I want to pull more than that 101.
It's so awesome.
And as soon as it gets hit, I will be bummed. Yeah, I want to hit that one so bad. That card is beautiful. I haven't even seen a gold, yet either. But I'm sure it's been pulled.
I've seen a tie-dye and I've seen the mojo. I have not seen a gold. I have not seen the black. But that I know people who do not collect wrestling cards, who do not collect Rhea Ripley if they are collecting wrestling cards, who have made it a point to get at least one of those.
Yeah. That's I
Just
mean
nuts.
that'll go down as an iconic card, I think, forever.
But what about the Bailey Premier level where she's looking out from the cage?
That was the next one I wanted to bring up, because that
Yeah.
again, like Select and the photos really have just made this set, and it's so awesome. Go ahead.
And Adam, you and I talked about this at the National. I think we talked about it with Tony and Paul. Might have been at the main event. Whoever designed this set is a fan.
Yeah.
Whoever designed this set took tender loving care to choose good photos, great photos in some case. And if you collect stick and ball sports, you get to the point where you see your player with the same exact picture over and over and over again, spread out over 10 years. And I think I saw somebody today posted Ricky Henderson. It was the same follow through swing on 6 different sets over 6 different years. We're not seeing that here. We're seeing somebody meticulously take their time to make this set great. And whoever
Shout
that
out to
is,
Steve.
yeah,
Steve Pellegrino. Yeah.
They're doing a fantastic job. I hope they don't stop. I hope they don't, because both these sets, 22 and 23, have been phenomenal. And a big part of that is the photo selection.
Well, and hopefully Fanatics or Panini, continue to support the WWE community. Because the WWE community, I think, is going to impact the other card, the card community as a whole, because I'm already starting to see things get released where there are iconic moments in sports on these cards. And I think that some of those, and the best example is the Kobe Bryant tribute card that LeBron was on for Prism. And it's like WWE, every single one of these cards is trying to represent an iconic moment in that wrestlers' history, and they just never really did that very much in NBA, MLB, NFL, and I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of it. And you can see by the fact that LeBron Kobe tribute is still a incredibly profitable card. It's 20 years after his rookie season or whatever, and it demands as much more than a rookie card. Yeah.
You know what it is?
It's crazy.
It's because wrestling is small batch, But they're trying to put out 30, 40, 50, 60 baseball products. They don't have time to sit there and sift through the photos. It's like, okay, boom, 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 put it out. Wrestling, you got 7 or 8 products, 9 products, maybe. You can take your time with it. If you have a dedicated team, you can take your time with it. So it's small batch. Yeah, good point. And we're better for it. So
one last thing I wanted to cover on something that I think needs to be mentioned is that I think Select is made better by the retail product. And I think 100%. it is the one product that I go out of my way to rip the retail version of. And I think the retail product last year was almost as good as any other retail product that I can think of in the history of retail products. Like, that's how good those blasters were last year, having the different base set colors, having the orange flash, having the different flash parallels and the autographs, the elephants and the tigers. Now this year they've reduced. I don't think there's elephants this year, Ryan. So just a correction on that. I was looking at the checklist. I don't think they're having the elephants this year, which I think is fine. The tigers are back, adding in the chase, adding back in the mezzanine stuff. Taking away some of the 101s does hurt it a little bit, but it does help the player collectors, as we've mentioned. So I think like this retail product further props up the value of Select as a brand legacy for Panini. I also want to make sure that everybody knows that like there may only be like 3 years of Select in WWE. Like there is a really high propensity that Panini is no longer producing wrestling cards after 2024. So come 2025 is a really high chance that Fanatics could have this WWE license back. And like Ryan said, it's small batch. They're only making a few sets a year. I only think that speaks to the rarity and the value of these products going up over time. I love what Select brings to the table. Transitioning a little bit, what don't you think worked very well this year? Like, is there things that you are, and I know there's things like that we didn't cover and that are really interesting, like the die cuts and stuff like that have been added this year. But what are some of the things that you think didn't work as well?
I think the only thing that I didn't love is just seeing that the zebra and the silver would be in the same box. And then more often than not, the color wheel, if you're lucky enough to get one, is in that same box. I think that's probably the only thing, is because it's so heavy in the
Right.
value of that one box versus the other 11. That one can get frustrating. And I feel like out of ripping 30 cases, I feel like there's been a fairly consistent pattern of cases with a color wheel tend to have, not as many bigger hits in it versus
Mhm.
cases without. And that's not always the case. And I don't know if it's just my 30 cases, but I feel like after doing 30 cases and hitting 12 color wheels, and 11 of those color wheel cases were, not that enjoyable for everyone that didn't hit the color wheel,
Right.
then it kind of gives you that kind of like, oh, do I come back tomorrow? Whereas like I think if you spread it out a little bit, as opposed to having like massive hot cases or very, very poor cases, you're going to get more excitement long term in the product.
That's a really interesting point. And I think, and here's what I've noticed as well, because I've watched a lot of cases myself. There really is no in between here. The cases are absolutely ridiculously loaded, or they're just kind of blah. And I think we saw that with Prism. I think we've seen that with Select. I think there's collation issues across the board. I think we saw, like with Prism, like when you got double inserts of like a guy back to back, like it was like there's collation problems across the board that seem not to have been fixed. And I think right now, more balance in the case breaking absolutely needs to be a focus going forward. Like, not just for people like you, Alex, that do this for a living, but also for people like Ryan and I who just want to break a box or break a few boxes and not have to worry that we're digging into a case that is just completely dead. Like, I want there to be more balance. I know that's easier said than done, but I agree with you, man. What are some of the other things that you've caught on to?
With that said, and I'll let Ryan answer, is I still think that a bad box of Select, based on the price point that it's at, is a better value than a bad box of Prism based on the price point
Yeah.
that it's at. So like you said in the beginning, that you opened up one box and you weren't unpleased and it wasn't great.
Yeah.
Like, I still don't think that if I open up a case and it was just a below average case, that there wasn't enough value in there to cover the majority of that case. Or cover enough to say like that was great. Whereas I feel like I've opened up cases of Prism which run from $300 to $3,500 a case before, and I'm like, I don't know if I have $500 in here.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know if I've felt that way yet with Select. So I don't know. There, something to think about.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think like when you're a collector too and you're trying to get into these boxes, like we've done a ton of comparison in this video already between Prism and Select, because I think the community does that too. Like there's an inherent tie between these two products because they're both shiny, they're both very investor friendly, all these different things. But I think that the main thing is like Select came in 2022 and really reset the WWE market in so many different ways because people were so displeasure. There's so much displeasure over what happened with Prism, and Select really just blew people away. And I think this year Prism had a little bit of a better reaction, especially because Whatnot was around to support a lot more of the ripping, a lot more of the first off the line got ripped. Like there's a lot more going around at Prism. Select, I didn't have as much ground to make up this year. So I think there was a lot more balance in sort of the community's reaction to it. But yeah, I think like overall, like that makes sense. I kind of agree with you in saying like I really want there to be a better approach in the way that box to box this product comes out of the case, and I think that's a huge challenge that most of the card companies are facing. Very few of them have been successful. I know that I can't even think of an example. Maybe Leaf, maybe is one of the only ones I've seen that's been able to like consistently deliver because I think their batches are so much smaller. Ryan, what are
I
some of
think
the things that you?
it's hard because It's hard because people want those hot cases too. So it's like you
Yeah, they
can't
do. Absolutely.
I mean, you can't make it
It's a
even
great
across
point.
the board and then still have these cases that end up being like recorded and clipped and like shared, and like those are the things that are bringing people
Great
into the
point.
community too. Is like all of a sudden, oh, I hit 3 1-of-1s and 2 golds and a gold auto and a zebra Roman Reigns, and all of a sudden those are the breaks that people are sharing on YouTube or making clips of, and that's what's bringing people into the hobby. And I don't think that it's wise to go away from having those. So I don't know.
Honestly,
I
that
don't have
thought
a lot
never
of fun.
crossed my mind. That's a great point. I don't disagree with you there, Ryan. What about some of the things that you thought were a challenge here this year?
I don't like the color wheels. I
I don't either. I'm sorry, I don't either.
I just don't. I'd almost rather see them just put like 10 more kabooms of different wrestlers in that set. I mean, I think personally, I think kaboom should be a multi-product item. I think it should be in every product. I think it should be different wrestlers for every product, but that's, a discussion for another time. I'm not a big fan of the color wheels. I understand why people like them. If Brutus Beefcake had one, I'd absolutely buy one. But it is what it is. The other thing is with a 400 card set, I would like, and this is a pretty big undertaking. I would like to see 400 different wrestlers.
Mm.
I do we really need 4 Becky Lynch cards? 4 upper.
I would say no. I would hope
Yeah.
so.
Like I understand if you go to ringside and maybe there's 100 ringside, so you do 50 of them are A-listers, right? And then you have to sprinkle in A-list wrestlers in the concourse and the premier level because people don't want to open, have one card in the box be a good, an A-list wrestler. I get that. You can spread them out. I'd like to see an actual 400 different wrestlers in the set. Will it happen? No, it won't. But I just think that would be something that you could really just get a comprehensive everybody. And you could do like a red and yellow Hogan in concourse and NWO Hogan in ringside.
That's what they did. That's what they did.
So I mean, you can mix it up like that. But like I said, do we need 4 Undertaker cards? Do we need 4 Becky Lynch cards? I don't think so.
There is already 265.
What?
There is already 265.
What?
265 wrestlers?
Different wrestlers represented in this product.
Okay.
But
yeah, I don't know if
there's no Macho Man. There's there's a lot of names that they could have included. And yeah, I do agree. You don't need 4 of the same. That's for sure. When running breaks, I'll have 50 to 100 wrestlers that won't sell, and I basically have to like loop them together. Like even today, I had all of these wrestlers that didn't sell in the break, and I had to just like loop them all together in lots because nobody wanted them for $1 or $2, and for the entire case. And so it's like, how can we make it more exclusive and eliminate? I agree with you, having more wrestlers is great. Yeah, but it's like there are some people that nobody wants. I mean, I think that I could have gotten away with burning that Scripps gold auto I pulled today, and I would have had more viewers.
No, you don't want to go. You don't want to go the way of platinum. You don't want to go the way of platinum destroying cards. It's not good.
There's a guy that set his apartment on fire, burning stuff. But I think the challenge there, Ryan, is first of all, I don't think there are 400 names to go around. I think that's a really tough checklist to build. But I think I think there's a really hard line between building value and building complexity in a checklist. I can't say I agree with that, but I think it's an interesting sort of approach, especially when you look at a set like Chronicles, where you're going to have multiple products to spread that over. The other thing I think we wanted to talk about as well is like, as you build out checklists for the autograph, that's where I think more of the variety comes in. I know they did a really good job bringing more variety into the mezzanines too. We got people like Al Snow, Bob Backlund, stuff like that. So hopefully some of those are newer names that we don't get a lot of. I think Al Snow has had the most interesting card pictures of the year. He has 1 card with Pepper. He has 1 card with Head. And then he has 1 card with the deer head and a go-kart. So, I mean, like, the guy has definitely run the gauntlet of Austin cards. What are some of the other things that you thought needed to be worked on a little bit, Ryan?
That was really my thing. I really like the ringside design from last year. I wish they hadn't changed it, but they did, and it's okay. It's okay. I mean, these are all nitpicky things. I you know, I'd like to see Macho Man in the set because I also collect high end Macho Man too. But we all know there's something going on there with the license, and maybe a long time before we see him again. But my complaints are minimal. I mean, really, it's not a backbreaking complaint at all. I'm just not a big fan of the color wheels. It is what
Yeah,
it is.
I definitely agree with you on the color wheels. I think it's kind of like we wanted to do something interesting, so we needed a chase. Let's just go on Google and pull something that would look cool. And I just, it's really weird. I don't get it. I think there are other inserts that Panini could have brought in. I know we're waiting for downtowns, we're waiting for all these other things. We got kabooms. I think color wheels are kind of a weird one to bring in. The firestorms, I think, could have looked a million times better. I don't feel the die cuts. I'm not about die cut cards. I think it's kind of weird. The
I like
ringside
them.
die cuts, the ringside die cuts look really dumb. Like they're just kind of a notch cut out of the side. Like I
It's
don't know,
almost
man.
like
Like
they forgot to do the other side.
yeah, exactly. Like I mean, like it's like I get it. Like Select has had die cuts for a long time. So is Elite, which is one of the next products coming out. Like die cuts have been a part of Panini's MO for a while. I've just never been a fan of them. I think some of the design, especially for the concourse, still needs a lot of work. I think I love the premiere design this year. I think it's a million times better than last year. But I think the concourse design needs work. Ringside, I'm still not 100% sold on it being 100% horizontal. I wish they had horizontal for some of those pictures like the Austin and the Undertaker, but the vertical ones for people like you mentioned, like does Becky need 4 cards? Well, if you can get a cool photo for all of them, then maybe some of them you can do that. Mezzanine being horizontal, I thought was a completely unnecessary idea. But overall, I mean, like this product again, we're like this is like Top Chef. We're at the finals of Top Chef, and somebody like gently overcooked their panna cotta, and we're just like, okay, now we're like we're nitpicking to a point where we're like, oh, the die cut is slightly off on this one card. So
I
just
would drop. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
go
I
ahead.
was like, I
No,
would
please.
drop everything that I'm doing if I could be in a decision-making room with the people at Panini on some of these releases. Like that would be just because I feel like I have so many opinions, and I'm just kind of shocked that those opinions aren't being even addressed in those rooms. And
Mm.
one thought that I had was, you said it earlier, that hypothetically, if this might be the second to last year of Select, or if next year is the last year of Select, then what I really hope they do next year is they do a different ringside. So like not the old ringside, not this ringside, but they create something similar to what they did this year, so that there's 3 different. Like if they know the writing's on the wall, they know this isn't going to continue, then I am totally okay with them not having that iconic, sleek look of the vertical ringside that
Just
they've
go
had.
off the wall.
And just do another type of card, because then you've got these 3 kind of iconic pieces of the WWE history in the flagship product, the product that everybody likes, that I think could stand this test of time. But if they are sitting there thinking we're going to do this for the next 20 years, then they need to decide real fast if they're going to stick with the ringside that they have now or go back to the original, because the ringside, in my opinion, is the iconic piece of the puzzle. And if they keep changing it, then it won't be something that
That's
people go
interesting.
after.
I have
But
one
yeah,
more
if
thing.
they think there's only be one more year, then yes, I would change it a third time and have then someone can collect all 3 ring sides of the 3-year Select run of
That's
WWE, which I think
interesting.
I would totally do that.
I brought this up on another video. Select, if you collected Select in the mid '90s, the Firestorm cards are looking a lot like the Red Hots. If you remember Red Hots in baseball, um, I really would have liked to have seen a White Hot,
Mm.
which is the teal and white version, and they were infinitely harder to pull and much more expensive. I would have almost liked to have seen Firestorm Red Hots just be like a regular insert, or maybe you get one per blaster or one every other blaster, and then make the white hots like super hard to hit. Super hard to hit. Again, nitpicking, it is what it is. But those white hots, if you've never seen a white hot, go look them up because they are awesome.
They are cool cards.
Beautiful cards. So,
all right. So just to wrap this up, just the last sort of question for everybody. You've already started down the path, Alex. Like, if you had one thing here for next year, like what would you like to see them do for 2024 Select? If you were in the room, as you just said, you kind of mentioned one thing. Do you have another sort of suggestion that you'd like to see Panini take under their advisement for next year?
I would probably say the ringside would be focusing on what they want the ringside to be. So I'm not saying go back. I'm not saying stay the course, but understand where they're at in the like dynamic of how the industry is going to shape out, and then make sure that they don't screw the ringside up next year, because a lot of people felt like they screwed it up this year. It did not take me long to transition into liking it. I actually really like it, but long term, I think that they got to make a decision on how they want to do it, because they just changed it up. They can't. They have to have some consistency. I wouldn't mind seeing larger patches, like jumbo patches. I think they did a great job with the tie-dyes and below this year. A lot of those patches were very similar to the amazing immaculate patches that they put together this year. And so I think that's awesome. Pulling a tie-dye patch only card is like a hit now, whereas previous 2022 Select, it wasn't. So it'd be cool to have some sort of jumbo patch, because that is something that wrestling community loves.
Right.
I'd like to see some different animals next year.
Like, get some dragon scales and some snake skins, right?
Yeah, dragon feathers and
turtle shells,
cow print. I'm being serious too. You guys are laughing at me. I'm being serious.
No, these exist. Like, we're not making this up. This is something that exists.
Huh?
Yeah. Pony.
Yeah, make my little pony. Make my little pony version. Not by like a boa constrictor. I like the animal prints. I think they're cool as shit. So, for me, I like seeing the different versions in there. Maybe throw one in a T-Mall. Are we going to get lucky envelopes this year?
We got 2 or 3 cards from last year, so I still haven't seen this year. I think we will get the Asia exclusive product. We got a lot of that. Like, that was much more readily available than I thought last year, so I fully expect it this year as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this product's another home run. I really do. Panini has really. Now I'm going to get accused of being a Panini show when I say this, of course. But I think, like I said earlier, I think you can tell that whoever's putting these products together gives a shit. Yeah. They really care. They want them to be good. They want the collecting base and the fans to like the products, and they've succeeded on I can't think of a bad product. I mean, you can complain and shit on Prism. That's fine. You can. But Prism is still Prism. People are going to open it because it's Prism, because of the name
brand. It's standard.
Yeah. So, going back to what Alex said, I think even a mid-level box of Select at $180 is going to get you a couple cool cards that you're going to like. Whereas Prism, you could rip box after box of Prism and just completely just be so pissed off as you go deeper and deeper. Whereas I think Select is, I mean, from the cases I've seen you rip, it seems like there's a couple golds per case. There's a bunch of tie-dyes per case. I mean, maybe an emerald, maybe a black, maybe a color wheel. There's if you open a box out of a fresh case, you got a pretty good chance of hitting something nice. So
I can recall one case out of 30 that I was truly upset with, that I thought was just bad. And that's a pretty good percentage.
That's 90%.
So I think for me, there's 2 things that I'm looking for, and I'm really not sure if we're going to get them. One of them is I want at least one product with on-card chrome autograph. Like, they do that in Optic, in NBA and NFL. I just give us just one product with on-card chrome autographs. Like, we got it with Topps Chrome in WWE. We got it with Finest in WWE and Topps. Like, I just want one. I think Select would be just a home run if we were able to get on-card autographs next year. The other thing is, I think we've seen some of the Black 101 autograph patch cards. They don't have the logos this year as much. Last year there was I had like the pictures of all of them. I have the Becky Lynch. It's a logo 101. I seriously have like 4 or 5 Select cards on my shelf from last year's product because they're just that cool. They're, like Ryan said, they just look cool to display. I have a couple in the case here to my left. Like, I think there needs to be a focus on bringing back the chase in those 101 cards again, outside of just because WWE just isn't about the base cards the way it is in the NFL and the NBA. So that's my 2 things. All right, so let's wrap this up. Alex, why don't you tell them one more time where they can find you on Whatnot and Instagram and Twitter and everything, and just plug your breaks here because I think you do a really good job for people in the community here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you post this and you want to run like a giveaway from me, it's like $100 credit towards my 5-case break, and then you can pick the winner from all your likes and retweets. Do it and
let's do it.
This is courtesy of Breaker Mayfield. Breaker Mayfield
Awesome.
and Whatnot. It's $100 to anyone that retweets and likes Adam's this panel, and then
I love it, man.
I'm doing a 5-case Select hobby break on Saturday at 10 a.m. and those I've done 2 other ones and they're a lot of fun. And so Whatnot.
So stay tuned. So then stay tuned to Twitter here. We'll have this video up tomorrow, and I guess now we're giving away $100 in credit. That's incredible, dude. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
But yes, make sure to plug your Whatnot here just so they can get you there in your Instagram and Twitter as well.
Yep. Whatnot is Breaker Mayfield. Twitter and IG are the same. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was great to have you on. Thank you for the perspective. It's awesome to have somebody who sort of does this from a different side of the hobby. I know it can be controversial at times because prices are all over the place and whatever. But I think this is such a really vital piece of the community, right? It's a service that you provide. Clearly, you have a gigantic audience. There's hundreds of people on your stream that all come to you for this. I know there's others that do the same thing, but you've really pioneered a lot of this new area of WWE breaks that really have propped up this whole new area of the hobby that have given access to collectors, brought new people in. So really glad to have you on. Thank you for joining our channel for the first time. Ryan, your side as well, where can they find you?
Instagram, Non-Sport Showcase. So I do want to say, having someone like Alex on, it's like Zan says, the ecosystem of the hobby. I love when he mentions that, because he's right. You can't just have people that open boxes and keep all their stuff. If you want to get singles, you need people who throws out more singles into the market than breakers. Yeah. Breakers open the product to get the singles on the market. We have Ryan Bannister and Nate and Chad, and they own shops, that's how they get.
And we've had them on too. Yeah.
Right. We need all these areas. So thank you for your service. Ryan Shear, Non-Sport Showcase on Instagram.
And you can find me at WWE Gelman on Instagram. You can find me at SC Uncensored on Twitter. Stay tuned to our Twitter and Instagram here. We will be giving away $100 in credit to Breaker's Mayfield's next stream on Saturday for the 5-case break. We will be announcing that here shortly with the release of this video. Thank you so much, Alex, for everything here. Great to talk to you. Great to have you guys on. Thanks again.
Thank you.